Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our monthly Springboard Investor Pitch event. My name is Lyle Martin, CEO and founder of Springboard Equity. I'm going to take a quick minute here to kind of kick off the session and just update everyone into kind of the process. For those of you new to Springboard, just a quick update about us. Springboard Equity was founded earlier this year. We are a professional services company working with early and growth stage healthcare companies around a lot of different solutions, including funding options. In January of this year, we kicked off our crowdfunding platform. If you go to springboardequity.com, that is a complete platform for equity crowdfunding. And at this point, we've worked with 11 companies, including the 2 that will pitch today. So please check that out when you get an opportunity. We're also very proud to announce that starting next week, we will introduce a full placement service investment options for company more in the growth stage. We've partnered with Maxwell Financial Services and Growth Capital Services, full broker-dealer services around those to provide a more turnkey, full solution offering for growth stage companies. Also, just in a short matter of time, we're very excited. We have about 1,000, a little over 1,000 to date investors that have decided to become a part of the Springboard network. Take a look at the offerings that we have board. So all the companies that join Springboard in that capacity have a nice group of investors that take a look at those offerings. And then indirectly, we continue to build upon our investor network through various CRM solutions, and we outreach to about 14,000 various healthcare professionals, investors, and other positions and specialties within the healthcare ecosystem regarding different companies and solutions within Springboard. Today, we are very excited to have 2 digital health companies in iRewardHealth and betweenMD. Each company will present their investment offering and company overview for about 10 minutes, followed by a 5-minute Q&A. For anyone who is listening, if you have questions, I would encourage you at that time to use the chat function or the Q&A function to the right of your screen. Just enter your question in there, and after each company presents, we'll pull a few questions out during that 5-minute allotment to have some of those questions answered. At this point, I believe we will turn the session over to Rick McCartney and Benji Silverman, who will pitch iRewardHealth. Thanks, guys.
Hi, I'm Benji Silverman.
And I'm Rick McCartney, and our company is iRewardHealth, an evidence-based program to help people to build healthy habits. I'm a nurse practitioner with experience developing lifestyle interventions to help people to reduce risks for chronic and preventable diseases.
And I'm an addiction psychiatrist who specializes in the science behind how individuals change their behaviors. Next slide, please. The problem addressed by iRewardHealth is poor engagement in health and wellness activities. It essentially goes without saying that we are in the midst of an obesity epidemic. Obesity is a leading cause of chronic and preventable medical illness and costs over $150 billion per year in the United States alone. At this point in time, as a society and a medical profession, we know how diet, exercise, and other healthy activities can prevent and combat obesity. And we have a ton of really great wellness tools to help people achieve these behaviors. For example, gym memberships, nutrition programs, and wearable fitness devices, among others. And yet, the obesity rates continue to grow at an alarming pace. The problem we face is not one of a lack of knowledge. The problem is that people don't use the health and wellness tools available to them. Next slide, please. And the reason people don't use the tools available to them is because they are not sufficiently rewarding. Based on decades of behavioral science research, we know our attraction as human beings to positive reinforcement and positive rewards. In other words, we prefer to do things that feel good to us, and we put off things that are difficult. I think this is a concept most of us can relate to in our daily lives. I'll give you a few examples to think about. It's easier for us to spend money for something we want right now than it is to save money for later. And it's more comfortable to sit on our couch and watch our favorite television show than it is to go out for a walk. And it certainly feels better to eat a candy bar right now than it does to worry about weight gain or diabetes later. Our brains are wired to seek positive rewards that feel good to us right now. And from a health standpoint, that wiring in our brains puts us at risk for long-term consequences, such as obesity, makes it difficult for us to change our behaviors, and is a major reason why we don't use the health and wellness tools currently available. As an example, if we consider wearable fitness devices or going to your primary care doctor to discuss a new diet, there's nothing inherently rewarding in there. We might feel some novelty in buying and wearing a new device, and we might feel some excitement in the hope of starting a new diet, but these feelings wear off quickly, especially as we face the pain that comes in trying to implement new and difficult behaviors. And so what happens is we start and stop. We start wearing the fitness device and we stop. We start the diet and we stop. And this helps explain why half of the people who buy a wearable fitness device stop wearing it within 3 months. Next slide, please. Our solution to this problem is iRewardHealth, a user-friendly app that helps create behavioral change through effective incentives. iRewardHealth takes that brain wiring I was telling you about earlier and essentially flips it on its head by adding positive rewards to the things we usually find difficult. And a very important point here is that the rewards applied by iRewardHealth are rewards that we know help people make behavior changes. Rewards have to be tangible, they have to be immediately connected to the behavior they're designed to reinforce, and they have to be of real-world value to the user. iRewardHealth accomplishes this by giving cash-based rewards directly earned for healthy choices. In other words, iRewardHealth pays you cash to do the hard things necessary to maintain good health. Next slide, please. Here I'm going to show you a few slides just so you get an idea of what our app looks like, and you can also download it. If you contact us, we can give you some login credentials. We designed the app to be as easy to use as possible. You can see here from the home screen, a user can log an activity or a meal, can view daily progress, and has a constant reminder of their points earned to date. Next slide, please. On the rewards screen, users can easily keep track and view their points earned to date. Users earn points every time they engage in healthy activities, such as a healthy meal, exercising, or engaging in a health education activity. Points are earned according to our patent-pending rewards algorithm that takes into account the characteristics of a healthy behavior. For example, how long did someone go for a run, and is it objectively measured or self-reported, and also adapt to fit a user's stage of habit formation. For example, how many days in a row they perform that activity. Next slide, please. And points can be redeemed for cash immediately and at any time. Unlike the examples I described earlier, with iRewardHealth, people actually engage in healthy behaviors and actually utilize the wellness tools available to them because they feel appropriately rewarded to do so. And now I'm going to turn it over to Rick to talk more about our business. Next slide, please.
Thank you. With iRewardHealth, an employer or other sponsor will initially provide incentive money. This typically works out to be about $14 per month, which is on par with the industry standard for wellness incentives. This incentive is used to reinforce the user engaging in healthy behaviors. We know that these health behaviors are associated with improved attendance rate for employees, specifically a 12% reduction in sick time and lost productivity, and they've additionally produced a reduction in expenses for medical claims. Savings in the industry is typically at least 6%, and an average of $1,400 per year for each overweight employee. To monetize this tool, we utilize a per-user, per-month subscription model, and our market strategy has been direct sales to employers and distribution through health benefit brokers. Next slide. Unfortunately, while thousands of wellness programs exist, the industry average shows us that less than 1% of all of the employees who have access to a wellness program are actually using that program. Through iRewardHealth's easy-to-use system, we have seen an 84% engagement rate among eligible users, and we prioritize making our system as sticky and engaging as possible to keep people on track in meeting their health goals. Next slide. At present, we have an app in production with live users on iPhone, Android, and web app. We initially raised $260,000 of funding in the summer of 2015. We had a beta product launch in November 2015. Financial transactions went live in January of 2016. We were in the App Store in February in 2016. And at this time, we're actively enrolling new customers. We have contracts pending with multiple mid-size employers of roughly 3,000 to 5,000 employees each, and we're working with health benefit brokers to scale sales. There is a demonstrated need for a more engaging, usable, and financially efficient wellness solution, and we have an established team of behavioral scientists and software experts available to help to sustain growth with our current feature set. Next slide. Upcoming features, we have some pretty interesting things that are coming down the pipeline. The first of these utilizes machine learning to disrupt the current methods for dietary tracking. This tool is in active development, and when finished, we'll be able to identify the contents of a meal with greater accuracy than a medical professional. If you would like to see our preliminary tool and follow along with development, you can download the app Cat or Hat in the iOS App Store today. We're additionally working on a health education delivery platform which will utilize existing health materials that sponsors have developed and present them to their users at optimal times based on the user need and applicability. We are also developing a sponsor portal. This way, custom content can be pushed to the users, leveraging our communication channel to improve employee engagement with their corporate culture. Next slide. At this time, we're seeking an investment of $1 million, which will be used to support our current staff, future feature development, and marketing to accelerate our rate of scale. We have developed a product that is in live production, and we're positioned to rapidly scale user growth. At present, we're looking at profitability by the fourth quarter of this year. We have contracts pending to support over 20,000 users and have discounted our valuation to reflect that these contracts are scheduled to close later this month. Because we are at the tipping point for accelerated growth, we will be adjusting our valuation in 30 days to reflect our continued traction. Please act now to join us as we revolutionize wellness using behavioral economics. Thank you.
Okay, thank you everyone for attending, and great presentation, Rick and Benji. Appreciate that. Please go ahead and enter all the questions that you have in the right side of the screen, and we'll enter them, or I'll ask those to iRewardHealth team as they come up. If we can't get to everybody's question during the call, you'll get responded to within 24 hours of the call. In fact, Rick and Benji will reach out directly at that point either way, just to make sure that you've got all of your questions answered. So we have our first question here. Why is now a good time for you to be raising capital?
That's a great question. So we initially had raised some money to help with product development and to be able to show proof of concept and that we could actually produce a tool that would be effective and engaging. At this time, we are in a position to slowly grow sales, and we've been actively pursuing closing sales contracts. With the additional funding, we'll be able to provide extra support for that sales staff and really to help to keep a streamlined process as user base grows. So I think right now is really an optimal time. The company is young enough and early enough that investors can get involved and really have a meaningful stake in the success of the company, and we're positioned to be able to really utilize those funds in a very efficient way to help us to scale growth.
Okay, great. Got a question here from Tony. How do you differentiate your company with Jif?
Sorry, the wellness company was Jif?
Yes.
And so the main thing that really differentiates us from Jif, from Virgin Pulse, from some of the IncentFit, other companies, is really our focus on having an adaptive reward algorithm that really takes the user where they're at, assesses their level of change, their level of engagement, and it actually fine-tunes the level of reward that they're getting based on what's been effective. So we know that if you participate in a behavior and I give you a reinforcement, which is going to be the form of a cash reward, and you do not engage in that behavior again, it was not effective. And so what our algorithm does is it learns from that level of engagement, and it's able to scale the monetary incentives that are given in order to help you to be able to engage on a greater level. So that's really a primary distinguishing factor between us and Jif.
Great. We have a question from Maxine. She's looking for the name and email of the presenters. We'll actually follow up and have you connected through email after the call, Maxine, so don't worry about that. And anyone that wants to reach out to them, just email us at info@springboardequity.com. Michael asked, with what sounds like significant revenues coming in, why are you raising money now?
Mm-hmm. So, and I think it was something that I tried to speak to initially is that we have revenue coming in. We have a user base that is actually going to pretty quickly outpace our ability to support them. So what we'd like to do is bring in-house 2 more software engineers to really help support a streamlined process, make sure that we're able to keep up with user demand, and then also to help scaling marketing. So while we have substantial users lined up, it really is something that we're wanting to accelerate because 20,000 users is fantastic. Really, we're targeting getting into the 100,000, a few 100,000 users by year end. And in order to support that, we need to bring people in now so that we can make sure they work well with our team, so that as we start to have real significant user scale, we're not left kind of behind the 8 ball there.
Great. Great. Nikita said, great pitch. Wondering if you guys are going to be sharing the slide deck. Yes, Nikita, we're going to not just share the slide deck, but we'll also send you a replay so you can view the pitch over again if you want. And Salman says, how many users have downloaded the app?
So right now, so we had 1,500 initial users in our beta launch with student population. Right now we have 10 user accounts with companies, and they're pretty small companies at present, and an additional 5,000 user contract that we're lining up actually to sign this week. So we have downloads of those initial companies, about 150 users with live cash transactions daily, and then we have a 3,000 user contract that's pending this week.
Great. And Michael wants to know, how did you arrive at your valuation?
So it's a pretty discounted valuation based on financial projections. They are available on the platform, but I think you need to send a request and we can give you access to them. So we basically have significantly discounted. Our valuation is on par with what next year's revenue would be, as opposed to using a multiplier, because we do respect the fact that as a startup, using a more traditional valuation for an established company, in my opinion, is actually not appropriate. So I can send you financial projections as well as traction to date, some more details if you want to substantiate that. Okay,
great. Real quick, Maxine said, what's the website? It's iRewardHealth.com. Thomas says, is asking, most health and wellness solutions are successful in keeping consumers engaged for a 3-month period. Not sure why, but that seems to be the magic number that keeps popping up. In any case, does your solution sustain longer engagement than that? If so, why? And his second question is around ROI, which, Thomas, we may have to just have that question answered offline, because this may be I think this is most amount of time we have is to answer this question here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that 3-month is the same for typical employee wellness as well as wearable devices. There really seems to be a fading off that occurs if something is not continually reinforced, and so an upfront reward is not enough to sustain use beyond that. What you really need is something that's reaching out to the person, easy to use, so someone can participate in iRewardHealth with 5 to 10 minutes a day, which is pretty low impact, and then they're actually receiving financial rewards for each interaction. So that's really how we keep people engaged. Is that I'm sure you have apps on your phone that you don't open up every day, and the reason is that they're not catching your attention, and then you don't have a rewarding experience when you do open it. And so we can kind of keep ourselves on that main page of a home screen by being strategic about how we administer rewards, the push prompts we use to get people to stay engaged, and then we actually can fine-tune the level of reinforcement so that if we notice it's been a couple of days since someone's checked in, we can give them a kind of a re-engagement reward to help them to kind of come back into the fold. So that's a level of individualized attention that many of these people aren't getting with their gym membership reimbursement or with just initiatives that are done on campus at their company.
Okay, thanks, Rick. We've got to get going on to the next presentation, so I'm going to go ahead and share the screen again. And thank you, Rick and Benji, for the presentation. Everyone will get a follow-up from the questions they asked, including those that we didn't have a chance to get through. So please hang in there on that. And without further ado, between BetweenMD, Andy Quinn.
Good afternoon. I'm Andy Quinn, and I'm the founder and CEO of betweenMD. The next slide, please. Can you hear me okay?
We can hear you, Andy. I switched slides. Is it not showing?
No, it hasn't showed up yet.
Hang on a second. Let me see if I can fix that. There we go.
Great, thanks. So I bring some deep healthcare knowledge into this mobile health space. Back in 2002, I joined a company called Quick Compliance, and up until the end of last month, we provided online HIPAA and medical education. We initially started out with WellPoint and Anthem, training their roughly 20,000 to 25,000 users with job-specific functions around HIPAA compliance. And then we moved into most of the Blue Cross Blue Shields in the US, plus then we moved into pharmaceutical companies and leading medical device companies, providing education for disease states and for new product launches. Next slide, please. These solutions initially focused on online education courses. So we developed over 570 courses and deployed them to over 2 million users, both on our own platform and others. The company basically went from startup to 2.5 million revenue first full year, 3.5 the second, and then we sold the company twice. Some of the solutions we provided were really exciting. As we moved into the mid-2000s and late 2000s, we started doing multi-language games to help launch products across multiple countries. So for Abbott, we launched a 21 countries, 7-language new product launch game. And then we also did gamification incentive solutions for doctors, nurses, salespeople, and patients. And it was kind of in one of those early solutions with Discovery, probably in 2008, where we were doing something with juvenile diabetes, where the chief medical officer there said to me, geez, it would be great someday if we could have a device track what goes on with a juvenile patient, provide that information to their parents, so if their blood glucose is high or low, the parents is aware of it, but also provide them education in a way that a child or a teenager can understand. And that's kind of where we're going with betweenMD. So when we formed betweenMD, we provided a license for all the prior solutions from Quick Compliance that are non-HIPAA over to betweenMD. Next slide. So current situation is we, of course, have billions of dollars wasted in solutions to make key stakeholders in healthcare happy. I don't know if anyone's tried to use a patient portal, but that has not worked well from many people's perspectives. And we've got an insufficient number of focus on the individual care goals. So most doctors will tell chronic patients, eat better, take your meds, lose weight and exercise more. There's no personalization. You walk out of the office and you forget what you're doing. And the other thing we discovered is when you focus on illness, nobody pays attention. Next slide. And so what we've seen is multiple point solutions, many silos covering multiple chronic diseases, and there's no scalable connection between the tools and the patient, and our perspective is a lot of these might not be commercially viable on their own. Next slide, please. So as we formed betweenMD, our focus was to help keep people's health on track, and to do that where most people's health occurs. More than 98% of our time for the average person is spent outside of a doctor's care. But we really don't remember what to do. If you get discharged, you don't remember what to do. You don't remember to tell your wife or who your caregiver is what to do. And so the focus of our whole medical system is focused on brief interludes with our doctors, whereas most of our time is not getting the right support there. We also changed our focus to where the financial impact is greatest, which is the self-insured employers, by providing them solutions as they're paying a significant portion of our healthcare costs. And we're now focusing our products specifically on 2 major areas. One is metabolic syndrome, which according to the Chief Medical Officer at Aetna is the #1 unmet problem in the US, and of course chronic disease, which is the #1 cost driver. Next slide. So, brief company history. We formed March of last year. assigned assets in, provided some self-funding, and got some angel investing. We rolled out a beta app, which got some screenshots of there. One of the key learnings we got from that beta app is we initially went out with diabetes and some COPD information, and the feedback we got from patients was, I'm not my disease, I'm who I am, and so we changed our whole model to focus on assessment, monitoring, guidance, and providing personalized information. We were selected as a New England Health Tech Disruptor to Watch last year. In October, we rebranded the company to focus on our focus on the patient, and did a development relationship with Kiwi Tech, which is critical as their experts in content management. We've got a full-time team of 9 people that started in December working on our product, which will be ready for September 1st launch. And we're now focused on metabolic syndrome, which is the massive untapped market. Our clinical team is leaving the company to focus on clinical research. Our platform is currently 80% complete. Next slide. We think the ACA creates an interesting financial opportunity for both insurance companies, corporations, and brokers, in that with capped returns on insurance, we think a lot of the larger insurance companies will move to the support the self-insured market, which means that solutions like ours, which can help provide immediate benefit to employers and the employees, I think will be well accepted. And almost half of the Americans who are currently working are covered by self-insured employers. Next slide. Current traction. So I've focused on a couple key things here. GC7X is an interesting solution in the metabolic syndrome space. We had them out in Los Angeles. The inventor of that product has been nominated for 2 Nobel Prizes. So we'll be launching in September a 90-day program to help manage metabolic syndrome with them. Kiwi Tech, I mentioned, we're working with in terms of development. Redox is one of our partners for EHR integration. We've had some conversations with Sanofi, and we'll be partnering with Viosk for quick 30-second videos. Next slide. So focus is really on assessing to see where people are. Next slide. Monitoring people to keep them focused on take their information. So one of the things I learned personally is when my weight goes up 10 pounds, my blood pressure goes up 10 points. And I think one of the challenges for us is we don't have a good correlation as human beings as to what these medical metrics mean and how our bodies work. And next slide. So we're focused on providing short guidance. One of the interesting things, our games back in 2007 had 45-second intros. We had to move to a 7-second intro in 2012 because our attention spans dropped that much. So our guidance is short 15 to 30-second videos. Next slide. Here's an example of our fully responsive solution. As I mentioned, it's about 80% done. So it works on both a mobile and next slide, please. And admin and patient side. We're focused on care paths. Care paths are created algorithmically. Every time an input is put into the system, there's effectively an additional data element that's added to the patient's path. Next slide, please. And we've got a scalable admin function. So in looking at past solutions that I've done, especially with all the HIPAA laws, we understand very carefully what information can be made available to doctors, insurance companies, corporations, and we've also created a caregiver function so that my wife can see how I'm doing if I give her permission. Next slide, please. So we're focused on using data in terms of understanding how product usage, and so product means every assessment, every integration with a mobile device, every video that someone watches. We're watching pharmacy refill data. We've got the ability to check and see what's going on with secure messaging, and everything we've done with the system has been built on an API model so that we can partner effectively with other good solutions out there. And our inputs, as I mentioned, drive the individualized experience. Next slide. In addition to myself, we have some great people on our team. AJ Maini is our Chief Strategy Officer. AJ has worked with Blue Cross Blue Shield in Massachusetts and is a master at helping take health information and making it actionable. And then we've got a board of advisors, including someone who's worked with Dr. Maini, who's worked with the Cleveland Clinic, Christine Skelly, who has been a former chief of staff at Aetna. Next slide. We're looking at later this year, as I mentioned, to launch in September. First 6 months revenue, we think will be booked out for $500K in revenue between September and the end of February, moving up to about $3 million in total revenue by the end of 2018, and moving to profitability in 2018. Next slide. Our use of capital is to complete our technical development, to bring on talent acquisition, and to focus on marketing initiatives, effectively selling directly to both insurers, self-insured employers and the brokers who support them. Thank you, and look forward to your questions.
Okay, thanks, Andy. Appreciate the presentation there. And everyone, just so you know, we're running probably about 5 minutes behind. We're going to do a quick 5-minute QA and handle as many questions as we can get in that period. Andy will get to the rest of you after hours like the other group. And we'll go ahead and start with our first question here. If you haven't typed any of your questions in, please do now. Make sure we've got a lot of those to take care of before time's up here. So Andy, first question is, how does your revenue model work?
So revenue model is based on a base price per user of $2 per employee per month, and then each additional condition at whatever the content cost for that is. And that could range from $1.50 to $5.50.
Okay. Next question is, let's see, trying to sort out between the different presentations here. Are you planning a cash dividend?
8%.
Okay, great. And what kind of metrics do you measure during beta testing?
So we measure everything. So we measure every login, every activity that's used, what is not used, integration with various devices, if the patient's taking their medications or not. And also we have proprietary assessments that help drive then further engagement.
Okay, great. In the financial model, I believe this is referred to from Michael, why do the revenues not go up? There are some ups and downs.
So we view with self-insured employers that there's going to be different types of revenues go up and down. I'll have to take a look more carefully. In general, we think there's different times of the years where we'll see greater growth. So I'll have to look at that specifically and respond to Michael.
I might have misread it. It says why they not steadily go up. So in other words, I think it might be showing that there's just it's not linear or something like that.
Right. Yeah. Well, I think we assumed, you know, as we've watched, I think one of the questions asked earlier was around engagement. We expect that this won't work for certain companies, and that's the simple answer is we think about 80% of the people will stay on board.
Okay, great. From Fred, are you open to licensing other companies' technology to help your development, or is everything developed in-house?
So that's a great question. We built an open API so that we can integrate with other technologies. Our goal was to have a platform that we could work with other technologies with. So I think the answer would be we're happy to partner with certain things. Redox is a good example. We've got somebody on the blood glucose side that we'll also be doing a special integration with. Okay,
great. Can you elaborate on the go-to-market strategy?
So we've already contracted, we're in the process of contracting with the metabolic syndrome solution. And we'll be then taking that out directly to self-insured employer groups with both a metabolic syndrome and if they've got chronic disease messages. And so I think the go-to-market is going to be direct sales and followed after that through certain brokers who can then sell it as a value-add service to their clients.
Okay, last question we have time for is, can you elaborate on or speak more to the partnerships that you have with companies such as Blue Cross Blue Shield or any types of business that you're working through those partner channels?
So we don't currently. So AJ had in a prior life worked for Blue Cross Blue Shield. As the product is ready, we expect to be presenting our solution back to various Blues plans, and we hope by next year to be in partnership with them. Okay, great. Thanks, Andy. That's all we have time for at this moment. If you do have other questions, feel free to type them in now, and the webinar software will record those questions and allow us to connect you with Andy.
For everyone else, as I mentioned earlier, we'll have the replays sent out after this. Feel free to share those within your contacts if you know anyone that might be interested in hearing these pitches. And we appreciate your time. One last thing is we're going to have an educational webinar at the end of the month. If you didn't get an invitation for it yet, you will soon. Keep your eyes out for that. It's going to be presented by Conscious Venture Labs, discussing the power of conscious capital and how to use conscious capitalism to boost your employee morale and the quality of your business. Thanks again, everyone, for attending. Great presentations, Andy, Benji, and Rick. And that's all I have right now. Any closing remarks from you, Lyle?
No, just thank you again, and if you have any questions, again, type them in, or you can also send questions about any company to info@springboardequity.com. So appreciate you tuning in, and see you in an upcoming webinar. Thanks.